Let's talk about the Gospel of Luke. Now, this isn't just some old book with a bunch of stories. We're going to look at it the way its author wanted us to see it, as a meticulously researched investigative report on events that literally shook the world.
And that really brings up a huge question, right? I mean, how do you even begin to investigate a story like this? We're talking about eyewitnesses, miracles, these incredibly powerful teachings, and a resurrection. How on earth do you weave all that into a credible account? It's a massive undertaking.
Okay, so let's get into it. The author, who we know as Luke, he doesn't mess around. He tells us his game plan right up front. This isn't just a jumble of stories he heard. No way. He says he carefully investigated everything from the beginning, specifically to write an orderly account. And his whole goal? Certainty. He wants the person he's writing to, this guy Theophilus, to know for sure that what he's been taught is the real deal. This mission statement, it's basically our roadmap for the whole book.
All right, so if Luke is basically a journalist or an investigator building a case, then the first place we have to look is at his sources, right? Who are the people he puts front and center? Because who he chooses to focus on, well, that tells us everything we need to know about the kind of story he's building.
And when you look at the list, it's pretty startling for the time. We're talking about the poor, like the widow who gives her last 2 cents. He focuses on women, who he actually names as bankrolling Jesus' ministry and is the very first people to find the empty tomb. Then you've got the sick, the sinners, the despised Samaritans, and yeah, even the crooked tax collectors. Over and over again, Luke takes the people on the absolute fringes of society and shoves them right into the spotlight.
And this isn't just some minor detail, This focus on the outsider is the main plot. It's the whole point. So let's look at a key piece of evidence in Luke's investigation, a really famous story that takes a fundamental idea and just flips it completely upside down.
So here's the setup. You've got an expert in religious law, and he's trying to trip Jesus up. He asks this question that seems simple enough. For this guy, a neighbor was probably another Jew, right? Someone in his own circle. But Jesus, he doesn't give him a dictionary definition. He tells him a story. And it's such a powerful story. A guy gets mugged, beaten, and just left for dead on the side of the road. And who comes by first? A priest, a religious leader. He crosses the street to avoid him. Then a Levite, another religious insider, does the exact same thing. These are the guys you'd expect to help. But then a Samaritan shows up. And you have to understand, Samaritans and Jews, they hated each other. But this Samaritan, the total outcast, he's the one who stops, takes pity on the guy, patches him up, and even pays for his hotel room to recover.
And here's the kicker. Jesus flips the question back on the expert. He asks, so who proved to be a neighbor to the man who got beaten up? And the expert can't even bring himself to say the Samaritan. He just says, the one who showed him mercy. And boom, just like that, in Luke's telling, neighbor isn't a label anymore. It's not about your tribe or your zip code. It's an action. It's what you do. It's showing mercy, especially to your enemy.
This idea just keeps building. So later on, the religious leaders are grumbling because Jesus is hanging out with sinners, even eating with them, which was a huge deal back then. And how does Jesus respond? You guessed it. He tells them some more stories.
First up, he talks about a shepherd. This guy's got 100 sheep. Everything's good, a nice round number.
But then one of them wanders off. Now, what's the smart business move here? Probably just cut your losses, right? You've still got 99. But no. This shepherd leaves the entire flock vulnerable out in the open to go hunt for that one lost sheep.
It's kind of crazy. And when he finds it, he's not mad, he's ecstatic. He throws it on his shoulders, goes home, and tells all his buddies, hey, we've got to celebrate. I found my lost sheep. Luke hammers the point home. This is the kind of wild, joyful party that breaks out in heaven when just one lost person is found.
But he doesn't stop there. He tells an even more intense story. You've got this younger son who basically spits in his father's face by demanding his inheritance now, which is like saying, Dad, I wish you were already dead. He takes the cash, goes off to a foreign country, and blows it all on wild living. Then a famine hits, and he's so broke he gets a job feeding pigs, which, for a Jewish guy, is the absolute lowest of the low. He has officially hit rock bottom.
And this next part is the key. For anyone listening to this story back then, this would have been absolutely jaw-dropping. The son starts walking home, probably expecting to be disowned, but the father sees him from a long way off. And what does he do? An elderly, respected man in that culture would never run. It was undignified. But this father, he hikes up his robes and sprints. He runs to his son, throws his arms around him, and just welcomes him home. He completely shatters every cultural expectation out of sheer compassion. And he doesn't just welcome him back, he throws this massive party. He tells everyone, "This son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found." And this is the heart of the case Luke is building. He's presenting a picture of a God who isn't sitting on a throne with a clipboard waiting to punish you. He's a God who's running down the road to throw a party for you when you come home.
So you're starting to see the pattern here, right? In Luke's carefully laid out account, Jesus is constantly flipping expectations on their head. It's this recurring theme we could call the Great Reversal. And, as you can probably imagine, this is where things start to get really tense with the people in charge. I mean, think about it. The world tells you to chase wealth, climb the ladder, look down on people who mess up. But the Jesus that Luke presents, he says the exact opposite. He says, "Woe to you who are rich." He says the ones who humble themselves are the ones who will be honored. The hero in another one of his parables isn't the guy who's got it all together. It's the corrupt tax collector in the back of the room who can barely look up and just says, "God, have mercy on me, a sinner." The whole system is completely upside down.
And this one quote just sums up the whole conflict perfectly. Jesus looks right at the religious leaders who are all about money and status, and he tells them, what people value highly is detestable in God's sight. Oof. You can just imagine how well that landed.
So all this constant challenging of the establishment, this great reversal theme, it's all building to something. Luke structures his entire book like a long journey, and it all funnels toward one final destination, Jerusalem. That's where the story is headed for its climax.
And once they get to Jerusalem, everything explodes. The leaders accuse him of treason, basically, of stirring up the people and setting himself up as a king against Caesar. He gets put on trial, condemned, and then crucified, which was the Roman way of executing political rebels. They even hang him between two common criminals. But for Luke, the story doesn't end there. Because on Sunday morning, the women who had been following him go to the tomb, and it's empty. And right here at the absolute peak of all this suffering, Luke makes sure to include one incredible detail that just ties everything together. While he's literally being executed, Jesus prays for the soldiers who are killing him. He says, "Father, forgive them." It's the ultimate example of mercy for the outsider, for his own enemies.
Now, after the resurrection, Luke points out something really important. Jesus shows up to his followers, and it's not just to say, "Hey, I'm alive." He starts connecting all the dots for them. Luke writes that Jesus opened their minds so they could finally see how his whole life, and especially his suffering and resurrection, was actually the point of the whole Bible story all along. The resurrection isn't just the end of the story, it's the key that unlocks the meaning of everything. And that leads to the grand finale, the final instructions. Luke wraps up his report with this commission. This whole message of turning your life around and being forgiven, it's got to go global now, to all nations. And who's going to take it there? Jesus looks at his followers and says, "You are witnesses of these things." That's amazing, right? A story that started with one guy investigating eyewitness accounts now ends by commissioning a whole new army of them.
And that brings us full circle. Remember, Luke said he wrote all this down, this orderly, investigated account, so we could have certainty. And the evidence he presents is a story where the outcasts are the guests of honor, where mercy is more important than rules, where there's a huge party for anyone who was lost and is now found. A story of an upside-down kingdom that climaxes in a death and resurrection. So after walking through his investigation, the question he leaves for all of us is this: what story does his account tell you?